Okay, so coffee has been a popular beverage for centuries. It's enjoyed by millions, just not me. I did mention that in the intro. I'm a non-coffee drinker, and according to my husband, he seems to think that I have no permission to make nor speak on the topic of coffee. But however, as because I don't drink it, but because I have done a lot of research for you today, and I generally do know a fair bit about coffee. But we typically imagine that something that provides us sustenance and essential nutrients to our bodies is considered food. So, how does coffee fit into that definition? So, to start with, coffee in its purest form contains virtually no calories, fats, or carbohydrates. It's mainly composed of water and caffeine. So, therefore, from a purely nutritional standpoint, coffee doesn't offer any substantial nutrients that our bodies require to function optimally. But the issue is when we start to add in extra ingredients, such as what are some of the favorite things that people love to pair coffee with, and that is sugar, milk, other flavorings to coffee, especially if you are adding or if you're purchasing your coffees and not making it at home. So, definitely when you add in things like sugar and milk, you're going to significantly increase its calorie content. And a typical cup of black coffee contains around 2 calories. But when you add a teaspoon of sugar and a splash of milk, the calorie count jumps to about 40 calories. So, and that's just a splash of milk, let alone when we then add in a latte where majority of the coffee is actually milk, or the quantity of the coffee is actually milk. So it may not seem like a lot, especially if we're going on 30, 40 calories, but it's when you add the other things. And also there's other ingredients when you're not making it at home, when you are purchasing it, that also bump this up, such as syrup, such as whipped cream, such as chocolate sprinkling over the top. There's a lot. All those additions can contribute to even a higher calorie intake, making your coffee more like a dessert or a meal replacement rather than just the coffee itself. So, coffee in and of itself can be considered a healthy choice. It does have some nutrients in it. It is a high antioxidant. However, when we add the sugar and the milk and all these other inclusions to make the most delicious coffee, it can lead to an increase in sugar intake and potentially weight gain. It can elevate blood sugar levels, and other health issues can result if it's not balanced out correctly throughout the day. So it's important to note that enjoying a cup of coffee with a moderate amount of sugar and or milk in a balanced lifestyle is completely okay. Obviously, the less milk and the less coffee that the less sugar that your coffee is made up of, the better it is. So you can think of how you then integrate it into part of your healthy daily intake is in one of two ways. So one of the ways is to know that you're just using the caffeine and the energy boost that it can give you, and the metabolic boosting benefits of coffee that it does actually contain. You can think about reducing your coffee down to just drinking those benefits. So, in other words, just having a plain black coffee before breakfast or before a workout or in the afternoon, anytime you need a boost. The alternative, if you do prefer a milky coffee or you do prefer to put a little bit of sugar in it, these are some of the things that you can do. The first step is try to reduce the amount of milk and the amount of sugar, or maybe even thinking about having some better sugar options. Definitely stick to your natural sugars and not the artificial sort of sugar flavors to make sure that you're still including wholesome ingredients and not too many processed ingredients. But the other way, more importantly, is to think of it and actually use it as a snack. So rather than having, say, your milky coffee with your breakfast, which is fine, you can still do that. But think about, well, if I'm having a milky coffee with my with muesli and I've got yogurt and I'm making it with milk and topping it with fruit, well, you can go, okay, well, how can we use that coffee as part of that intake? So you might just have your couple of tablespoons of yogurt with a sprinkling of the muesli on top rather than having the muesli soaking in milk, because you kind of think, well, the milk component is actually coming from the coffee. That's one way to think of it. Or oftentimes I hear people say that they had a morning coffee, but they still have their snacks. So they still might have their nuts and a piece of fruit. So or they still might have their yogurt, and usually yogurt and coffee doesn't go too well, but you know what I'm trying to say with that. And so instead, thinking about having that coffee as part of your snack. So think of it as the yogurt component, I guess, with the dairy, and pairing that with a piece of fruit. Or you're going to have that with a handful of nuts. So, or sometimes even just using your coffee completely as a snack in and of itself at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, for example. So it's all about making sure that we're firstly reducing the sugar intake, but then also just counting it as part of our food intake if we do turn it into food by adding milk and sugar and any other sort of flavoring. So that is a bit of a wrap up on whether coffee can be considered food. It doesn't have any nutritional value on its own when mixed with just plain hot water. It's when you start to add those other things that give it the calorie and the nutrition intake of a meal where you need to count it. So it's not necessarily that we need to get rid of coffees altogether. We just need to make sure that we're including it as part of our intake. And I will say, if this is you and you're maybe having 2 or 3 coffees, and if they are milky coffees, you will be pleasantly surprised on the impact that removing some of the snacks or some extra snacking in between and using that coffee, how much of a difference you will notice to your waistline. It is a significant impact.